All right, welcome back. Today I want to talk quickly about building units and what you have to keep in mind when you're designing these learning experiences. I've got two example units here. One have used the naming convention, grade 6 INS Unit 1 Geography, and one is just called Unit 2. So why can't I not just name something Unit 2? Well, some teachers teach 9, 10, 11, and 12, and if you name everything Unit 2, how are you going to keep track of which grade level is which one, especially if you are saving it to your resources or copying it to courses in subsequent years? It's going to really help you to stay organized and know what course goes with which classes. It's also easy for students to identify because if they add things to their portfolios in times, it's still going to remember, oh, this was a grade 6 thing I did. So using the naming conventions are going to be key to helping you stay organized. Now, I've showed this before, but remember there is a little arrow button here where I can open this up, and you can see that in this unit on geography, there are 3 subfolders that I've created. I've created one for each week. This is one way to do it. So if you have a 10-week unit, you might want to think about, how am I breaking this up? Maybe you want to do it each week. Here I've combined week 3 and 4 because it's longer that I'm spending working on this. And then within each of these folders, I have content, discussions, assignments, and things that happen within that week. It's a good way for you to keep track of how your unit is progressing, if you're staying on task, if you're doing things when you plan to do it. Now, I know things change, and sometimes you have to add an extra week, but you can always come in and change these kinds of things. So here you can see there's some introduction, first 2 weeks spent on content, and then week 3 they get into a project. So learning about the world, features of a map, scales and measurements, and then how to create a scaled map of football field. So that's just kind of leading towards an assignment at the end. Now, again, this didn't follow the naming convention. So if a student were to add this to their profile, which class was this? What was this from? So adding this is grade 6 INS grade 6 INS, what was this? If this is a final, we'll just call it like that for now. Grade 6 INS, create a scaled map of the football field. So let's save these changes. Now when the student builds its portfolio and they want to have learning conferences, then they will actually be able to, okay, this is not just summative assessment. Oh, which class was that? What summative assessment? So using the naming convention is going to help you in building those portfolio with students. All right. So this is one example of how a unit could be built. You could also break this up into stage 1 of a project, research phase, report writing phase, or essay draft phase, final phase. So you can break this up and use things that work for you. Just remember, how this is built is exactly how it will look for students. So think about the naming conventions and the organizations. So, because now imagine you've seen this, you can see what's happening and when it's happening. Great. Imagine now you go into this unit and this is what is coming your way. My God, there's a discussion for week 4 at the top, and then it's introduction. There's a final summative, but then it's module 2 and 3. What group presentation about what? Like, what's going on here? Like, you can see that if you're just adding things randomly and not thinking about how you're structuring and laying it out, a student coming into this unit is going to be very confused very quickly. All right. Now, you can easily rearrange things. So if I want to move the introduction to the top and I want to move module 2 in there, so you can just click and drag to move these around so that you can reorder how you want it to look. All right, so this is an example of how not to design a unit. So please think about this when you are actually building your units. Now, if I go back to the less anxiety-inducing unit, what you could also do is maybe you don't want kids to be able to see all the weeks of the unit in advance. You don't want a kid to open this up and jump immediately to week 10 and see what the summative test is going to be. So what you go to here, you can unpublish this, unpublished for all your classes, unpublished for all sections. Okay. So if you're in week 1 of this unit, now that you've unpublished those weeks, the student coming into this class can only see the activities for unit 1. So he can see these things that he's going to study, but he can't actually jump to week 2 and week 3 and week 4. Okay, so it's a good way for you to make sure kids are focusing on what you want them to focus on. Now, for the advanced users who want to play around with this, with the publishing and unpublishing, if let's say I want this to be published, but I want this to automatically become available. Let's say this is where it starts. It starts on Monday. That's when it becomes available. So at that, it's going to be published. Now you can say it's published, it's unpublished, published on the start date. So on this date, when students open their class, suddenly week 2 is going to be there. Okay? So I have set that one to be published at that time. Oh, you can set a time as well. So midnight, or maybe your class is at 8:15. So you want it to be published at the start of that class on that day. And then maybe you want to go into edit. If you click publish for all sections here, it'll actually just immediately make it publicly available, or not publicly available to all your classes. So if you want to time it, you have to go into edit. And so this is going to be the following week on the Monday, and that's the time I want, and then publish on that start date. Save changes, and now you've kind of built in that your subsequent learning experience are going to appear when you need them to appear. So students aren't running ahead. It's going to help with organization and keeping things on track. I hope you found this useful. I'd love to hear how you're building your units now that you're thinking about it, so we can get some more examples out. Please let me know if you've built a unit or two. I'd love to have a look and share so we can learn from each other about how to best do this. Thank you.